Hello gamers from around the world, this is Archimedes, the video game enthusiast from Germany, with another mood-lifting video. Some of you might have noticed I'm in a particularly good mood today, and that is because I'm actually on vacation. I pre-recorded this video before I took off, and by the time this is up I'm already in this mode. But that's not why you're here. We actually want to talk about video games, and there's a lot to come, my friends. The July week starting on 20th is going to be insane. First, we are getting something unprecedented, and I'm talking about a demo week. Microsoft has announced that because there won't be any gaming shows this year like E3, Gamescom, etc, they will bring us 60 to 100 game demos from games that are very early in development to our homes. So we get to experience games that are sometimes years out in a brief glimpse. Expect those games to have bugs cause they are not regular demos. This is a very risky move by Microsoft cause it can easily be turned into a negative thing by trolls. But I have to applaud Microsoft for doing this, and I wonder why only few people are talking about this extremely pro-gamer initiative. And then there of course is the Xbox Games Showcase on July 23rd, where Microsoft will reveal their game strategy for the next generation, and I highly recommend my video on what we can expect at that event. You can find the link in the description below. But the thing I want to dedicate this video to is another discussion that is already going on social media, the media websites, and of course here on YouTube, and that is the discussion about frame rates on the next generation of consoles. We all know, and especially those who follow my channel, that the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 and the rumored and probably soon to be announced Xbox Lockhart will be significantly more powerful than the current generation of consoles. And the discussion revolves around the question, what will developers be using the incredible computational power in the new consoles for? Will they use it for graphics and image quality, or will they use it for frame rates at 60 FPS and beyond to make gameplay less shuddery? Since there are probably hundreds if not thousands of videos out there that state the benefits of 60 FPS or the advantages of 30 FPS like we have it today in most video games on consoles, I do not want to make another one of those videos. I will start with why the 60 or 30 FPS discussion is on fire and what is my take on this. Then I'll be analyzing why developers might choose one or the other, and I'll bring up a solution to the whole thing, what I think should be the discussion instead of defending one choice or the other. But before we go into the pros and cons of frame rates over graphics and vice versa, I want to ask you for a favor. If you watch this video and think you like what you see, then please consider to hit the like and subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to not miss out on future videos. I put a lot of work into my videos, and this little click from you helps me more than you think. And if you know someone who would enjoy this video, please feel free to share it out and help my channel grow. I would greatly appreciate it. But now, let's get into the frame rate discussion. The whole framerate discussion started right after the PlayStation 5 reveal event, when Sony announced that many of their games, especially the first party games, will run at 30 FPS in order to push visual fidelity to the maximum. Microsoft on the other hand has been marketing that 60 FPS will be the new standard output. They even talked about 120 frames per second. Of course there will be exceptions, but the main message was that games will feel different with the 60 FPS. So what's my take on this? I absolutely understand the argument for 30 FPS. We have been playing 30 FPS games for years now, and we have had many amazing experiences with it. So I'm not in the faction that states I will boycott games if they run at 30 FPS. No, I will play games regardless of their frame rates, cause in the end I'm just a fan of video games. However, I think that it is time to go into the future with the new technologies. My biggest problem with the jump from the generation 360 and PS3 to the current generation was that there was basically no technical innovation. We got a few games that looked a little better than on the previous generation, but that's about it. The new generation of consoles that will launch this fall brings so many technical leaps that I think we should expect new innovations in game design with the SSDs, new visual fidelities with for instance Raytracing, and new experience for console gamers with better CPUs. And I can't emphasize enough how big of a jump the CPU power is in the upcoming generation. The new CPUs are about 4 times more powerful than the CPUs we have today in the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. And what does the CPU do in our systems? Well, it does a lot of things, like draw calls from the hard drive to the RAM. It's responsible for things like AI, physics and simulation in the games, and of course it needs to push the image in and out of the GPU, meaning the computational power of the CPU is responsible for frame rates. Now if I hear the argument I would prefer visual quality over frame rates, I often have the feeling that it is not clear that the visual fidelity, aka the rendering quality of the image, is done by the GPU. The GPU determines how many polygons you can render, how many particles can be displayed, how good the lighting is in the games, and so on. So visual quality, aka the graphic quality, is mostly determined by the GPU. I'll make a simple example why I do not understand completely why we shouldn't have both visual quality and frame rates. Like I said, today that CPUs are 4 times weaker than in the next gen consoles. Those weak so-called Jaguar CPUs are handling the 30 FPS we have today and all the AI, physics and simulation we have today in the games. Both new consoles will have 8 Zen 2 CPU cores, and 2 of those Zen 2 CPU cores should be able to handle what the 8 Jaguar cores we have today in the systems can do. And I know it is not 100% accurate, but let me pose the question: what are the other 6 cores doing if we go to 30 FPS, aka the same thing we have today? I know that with overhead, pipelining, etc, you can't use the rest of the 6 cores completely, but you get my point. There is a lot of CPU power left if the games do the same as today in the current gen consoles. And I know that some of the extra CPU capacity is needed for pushing higher quality assets like better textures in and out of the GPU and RAM, but then we also have now dedicated decompression blocks in the systems, especially in the Xbox, that allow to free up CPU power. I do not want to go too deep into the technical details and bore you with those. If you want to talk technical specifics, just hit me up and we'll discuss it. So why would developers choose 30 FPS over 60 FPS? Well, unless they bring the new systems to their absolute limits, which devs won't until the end of the PS5 and Xbox Series X generation, I can only come up with one answer. One of the main reasons why the new CPUs are so much more capable is that they use multi-threading. So the 8 Zen 2 cores in the new consoles can actually use 16 threads, and the game engines have to be optimized to be able to use multi-threading. And here comes my bold statement: some engines are not able to harness that multi-threading power yet. And yes, probably some devs simply can't do the needed optimization work right now. But of course, no one will admit that right now. So I expect that 30 versus 60 FPS discussions will not be as intensive after a few years into the next generation when the engines are more optimized. However, there's a simple solution to bring this whole narrative 30 FPS is better than 60 FPS because it's more filmic and vice versa to an end. You see, the new consoles are basically PCs. When we go back for instance to the PlayStation 3, that console used a cell architecture, which was very capable at the time, but also very different from what was used on PCs where the games are developed on. So at that time, a console game was very specialized and needed to be strongly optimized for that respective console. Now today, and of course especially in the next gen consoles, that's no longer the case. PCs and consoles work on the same architecture, the x86 architecture. So basically console games are PC games and vice versa. And that's why there is significantly less optimization work required, because again, console games and PC games are the same. And we already see that with Microsoft today, because all their first party games simply release on both systems, PC and the Xbox. With Sony we also see that trend, that PlayStation exclusives like Horizon Zero Dawn and Death Stranding are coming to PC, and if the fanboys like it or not, Sony will release more of their games also on PC in the future, because there's just too much money to be made. But my point is, if console games and PC games are the same, why should devs give us gamers not the same options to choose the display graphics and frame rates on consoles, just like they do it with the games on PC? PC gamers know how much they can tweak when it comes to graphics. For instance, this image here shows a leak from the graphics menu of the PC version from Horizon Zero Dawn, a PlayStation game. Or just have a look on how much you can tweak in the PC version of Gears 5, an Xbox game. And let's not forget that the new consoles that will launch this fall are more capable and more powerful than probably 90 or 95% of the PCs out there. So why are gamers arguing and defending the decision of a developer to choose 30 or 60 FPS for a game? Friends, the gamers out there should demand options, cause taste and personal preferences are different, and that's a good thing, but we gamers should use our voice not to argue 30 or 60 FPS, but to argue pro option, cause all the games that are coming have the options to tweak graphic settings. It's in the games, and devs just don't release the options on consoles. We have some games today that already have the so-called performance modes where they gave us the decision to choose in between 2 graphic settings, games running on higher resolution at 30 FPS and on lower resolution with 60 FPS. And in my opinion, these kind of options should be extended significantly in the upcoming games on the new consoles. And with that, I'm off to my vacation. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please do not forget to hit the like and subscribe button as well as the notification bell, and consider sharing this out to other gamers. I would greatly appreciate it. And let me know in the comments below, what is your take on this? Do you prefer 30 or 60 FPS? Do you agree with me that we shouldn't argue over frame rates but argue pro options? Just drop your thoughts down below. And besides here on YouTube, you can also hit me up on Twitter, where I share a lot of opinions and gaming discussions. But for now, thank you very much for watching, I see you the next time, and game on!